Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
It's a Tuesday. It's a people's poll. James, we are looking at some of the options that we gave the listeners to choose. Tell them which one won.
I shall, but I should do the losers because I'm going to cover some of that off as well, but just not now. There were three options in the people's poll, all FPL related topics. The third place was wildcard drafts. And there's a number of you on wildcard at the moment. But I guess if people aren't on wildcard, they're like, that's not for me at the moment. But me and Clayton are both going to bring some Game Week 12 wildcard drafts to the Clayton and James show tomorrow. Next option was to look at entry and exit points for transfers, and does timing matter? I'm going to do a little piece on that for advanced tier patrons on the midweek FPL dilemma tomorrow. The winner of the vote was rotation awareness, defined specifically as December and Christmas rotation awareness analysis. How much should we think about this? We're in mid-November. I think we're reminded Christmas is coming because although you're in Portugal, Suj, it's November the 19th and it's been battering it down with snow this morning. I don't know what's going on. Well, I do. It's global warming, but...
Well, warming climate change, let's call it. I was going to say, James, all of this is largely irrelevant, isn't it? Because half these fixtures are going to get postponed for snow and nonsense anyway. So, yeah, it is what it is. But yes, I did get numerous photographs this morning. It's like one of those things where it snowed in England. So all of my friends and family decided that the first person they had to inform that there was snow was me. Being that I'm in a warmer place. So I've had plenty of messages this morning informing me about the weather. Let's touch wood that we don't get any disruptions over the next 6 or 7 weeks with regards to the weather. Though this is that time of the year where games come thick and fast. Yeah.
Look, if anybody's seen pictures today of certain training grounds covered with snow and are a bit worried and stuff, I would suggest probably don't be. The weather actually for the weekend looks a lot warmer by the time we get to the weekend. I'm going to Manchester on Saturday for City Tottenham. It's predicted to get up to sort of like 8 degrees for kickoff time on Saturday evening. So none of the games should be under any threat for this weekend. Obviously, we can only look at this. I can't tell you what the weather's going to be like in a month's time, but most of the games will go ahead now. They're only really called off if there's safety concerns for people
Fans,
getting to the stadium rather than the actual pitches and stuff.
Yeah, are all kind of
they've all got
undersoil
undersoil heating and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have had some concerns, I think, around Luton, particularly last year. But now with the clubs that are in the Premier League now, they'll all have undersoil heating. If you get that kind of avalanche like you have like that time I went to Burnley, there's
nothing you can do about that.
Of course.
No.
But yeah, it would take. I think these days now it takes something pretty dramatic for a Premier League game to be postponed because of weather.
Yep.
Good. Speaking, even the drainage is like most of the stadiums is like incredible. I can't believe, say at White Hart Lane, that any game would ever get postponed because of rain.
No,
I'm going to really tempt fate now, aren't I?
Yeah. So, having said that, look, I mean, everybody that was in Valencia didn't think that what happened there would, and that was a year's rainfall.
In like 5 hours, wasn't it?
24 hours,
it was like 5 hours.
In a day. It was mental. So,
sure.
I'm sure that would do some damage to your shiny, big toilet bowl of a stadium. Let's talk about the teams. Do you want to go team by team and have a look? Because I think obviously the more popular teams will have more interest in terms of will have more of their assets and so on. And really, one of the big dangers and threats around rotation is like if you've earmarked a certain player for captaincy, that's the one where you're like, okay, that could have a real impact.
Yeah, there's one particular one around Ollie Watkins that people have heard me mention for a number of weeks that I'm very concerned about. And I think arguably on paper, he probably is the best captaincy in game week 15, but there's like a big ring around it at the moment, as we'll discuss. For those on YouTube, you'll see a table at the moment that represents space in between game days, and cup fixtures are included in this, which is obviously really important. So anything that's marked red between two fixtures obviously means there's only 2 rest days between games, and the lighter orange represents 3 rest days between games. Anything that's bigger than that, you got to have 4-day rest between games. I don't think particularly gives reason for concern. unless it's a chosen game where you might get rotation. And of course, the easier the fixture, the more likely you are to have rotation. So first, I think it's important to obviously outline what we're looking at. So we've got game week 12 obviously coming up, European games next week, weekend of game week 13. Game week 14 is a mid-week set of fixtures. Game week 15, then the weekend, then more European fixtures. And you've got the weekend of 16. And you've got the midweek of the Carabao Cup quarterfinals and Chelsea's final Europa Conference League game, and 17, 18, 19, and 20 for Christmas before the League Cup semi-finals. That, of course, once we know who's in them, can cause a little bit more debate about some rotation for perhaps particularly game week 20. I think game week 21 to 23 in January, there's no real reason to have too much concern at this stage, because the FA Cup third rounds before 21, and you also got European fixtures between 22 and 23, where these games are liable for rotation depending on who needs results or what the draw is, for example. But I look at things like the big clubs who've got sort of like not great spacing between say 21 and 22. Take Arsenal. We've got Tottenham at home on the Wednesday and then Villa at home on the Saturday. Right, but the two fixtures Arsenal aren't going to rotate for. You might get one player, but it's not, Saka's going to get a rest against Villa, like he's not, right? So those are the sort of things you'd want to highlight and say that's probably not too much of a concern. So we're only going to look through kind of this period in December anyway. Who should we start with for a team, boss?
Let's go top of the table, Liverpool.
Well, yeah, they're the favourites at the moment, according to the bookies, and there's a period coming up for Liverpool, which I think brings quite a bit of concern. So it's Southampton on Sunday. They play Real Madrid next Wednesday in the Champions League, and then Manchester City on the Sunday. It's from the Manchester City game that I think causes the greatest alarm. City at home on the Sunday, Newcastle away on the Wednesday, and Everton away is the Saturday 12:30 p.m. kickoff. They then go to Girona on the following Tuesday in the Champions League. Now, they've put themselves in a very strong position in the Champions League. I think they're the only team on 100% record, aren't they? So could you see like a Salah getting rested at Girona? Well, I would say specifically yes, because of the 3 games beforehand. Because the interesting thing to note on this is that those fixtures are difficult and important enough for Liverpool, City at home, Newcastle away, and Everton away. They are not the sort of fixtures that you'd normally ring as liable for rotation, particularly as Everton is obviously the Merseyside derby. So what do you foresee there? Do you foresee like a Salah playing all 3 of them league games and then getting a break in the Champions League?
Yeah, more than likely. One of the other things that I would just point out with Liverpool is Madrid's at home, so no travel. Man City's at home, so no travel. Everton is in the same city, so no travel. So really it's just the Newcastle midweek and then Girona afterwards. So the fact that after Southampton, most of their games, 3 of the next 4 are within Liverpool, I would say does help. I would say that they'll definitely keep powering ahead. The Everton game is the only league game where I'll see any risk of potential rotation, and I think more than likely it'll be the Girona game. The impact is also like, say City beat Liverpool, it puts the pressure on, so then they'll want to get results against Newcastle and Everton moving forward.
And one interesting note of the Everton game is, of course, on at the 7th, which is game week 15. Obviously, as it's the 12:30, you may well get news on Salah if he's starting, for example. He doesn't feel like the sort of fixture that I'd want to captain him in, though, anyway. It's going to be Everton's last Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. Like, they're going to be massively up for it. And I guess it depends on recovery, right? Because if Salah plays 90 minutes against City and Newcastle and then feels a bit fatigued going into Everton, he won't start.
No.
But I would think at this point the intention now would be for him to play all them games and then probably not start in Girona.
Yeah, and again, he can, if they take a decent sized lead against Southampton, rest him. If they take a lead against Everton, hook him at 60 minutes. We haven't seen that particularly this season, to be fair, though. It's not one of those where he's been getting hooked early, even if Liverpool have been winning. But maybe that's the alternative. And even after Girona, it's back at Anfield for Fulham. So their travel doesn't seem too difficult. It's only really Newcastle, Girona that's the big journeys.
No, and I think just looking a little further ahead, that obviously Carabao Cup quarter final at Southampton, on the 18th of December feels fine for rotation.
Rotation.
Then it's Tottenham on the Sunday, so it's not improbable that even the Salah played in the Southampton game even. And it's, I think, really importantly, a 4-day gap to the Leicester game Boxing Day. Everybody's got at least a 4-day gap before the Boxing Day fixtures, which is game week 18. And that's Liverpool's prime fixture of all that is Leicester at home in game week 18. So you'd imagine he starts that. Then it's 3 days to West Ham. It is worth noting the West Ham game doesn't kick off till 5:15 on that Sunday. So you're getting close to a 72-hour turnaround as opposed to that Newcastle one and Everton is like a 60-hour turnaround, isn't it? Feels worse. Yeah. So I think that the hot spot for Liverpool does actually feel like the Everton game in game week 15, just based on the recovery from the City Newcastle games. Obviously, other players like Diaz, Gakpo, and the like of these players, Jota, they're clearly going to get rotated over this period a lot, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure.
City, I guess we're most interested here in Haaland.
Yeah, because I mean, City is a rotation risk at the best of times, isn't it? Really, it doesn't matter what the gap is. You're kind of concerned sometimes for some of your assets there.
No, but City only have one centre forward. That's helpful. Yeah. So there's not the Alvarez threat now.
He rarely gets rested. If he's fit, as a general rule, he does play.
The hot point for City feels like exactly the same place between game weeks 13 and 15. So again, they go to Liverpool on the Sunday, Nottingham Forest at home on the Wednesday night, then Palace away on the Saturday. You got any concern over that period that there would be a break for Haaland?
No, but if there was going to be one, it would be then. The travel's not as great. I think the Forest home game is going to be dogged, for want of a better word. They're going to dig in, Forest, aren't they? And make it difficult. I just think, it's on considering the form that they're in, looking at that run of Tottenham at home, Liverpool away, Forest at home, Palace away. They're all dogfight games, aren't they, really? I don't think there's anything in there that I see as an opportunity to rest. With City, always, if they can take a lead early, then game state really does change because they're really good at controlling games. Although we've seen that not so much the case recently. I can't see Haaland getting a rest in all of that.
I think Haaland plays all of this.
Yeah, me too.
I think there's a little bit of a difference with City to Liverpool. So before they go to Liverpool, they play Feyenoord at home on the Tuesday. So Saturday against Tottenham, Tuesday against Feyenoord. But again, both at home. That's helpful. So that 5-day gap to Liverpool feels important. And you've got the 3 games across the Sunday to Saturday period. But then they don't play Juventus till the Wednesday. And then they don't play Manchester United till the following Sunday either. They haven't got a Carabao Cup quarter-final. They're out. So then they've got 6 days to Villa and then 5 days to Everton. So I think as it would stand, the plan would be that he'd probably play all of it. There might be a case right at the end, Leicester away on the 29th of December. That's a 2:30 kickoff. I think it's a 1 p.m. FPL deadline in that game week, actually, which is game week 19. But I think up till then, probably till game week 19, I think Haaland's pretty safe, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Arsenal, the main one, I guess, would be to highlight concerns about Saka. Now, firstly, we need to know that he's fit, but let's work on the basis at the moment that he is. I think Arsenal's spacing is pretty good. Hot point for them feels a little bit different. So they go to Fulham on the Sunday in game week 15. They've got Monaco at home on the Wednesday and then Everton at home on the Saturday. So the Everton home game, perhaps in game week 16, might be a minor concern. But actually, if you look further ahead, Arsenal's spacing is pretty good. And I think really importantly, when you look at the Boxing Day fixtures, obviously they don't play Ipswich till the Friday night. So they've got a 6-day gap from Palace to Ipswich, and then they don't play Brentford till New Year's Day. So you've got 6-day gap before Ipswich at home and 5-day gap to Brentford away. That's a certainty that Saka plays against Ipswich if he's fit, isn't it? There's no reason for Arsenal not to go full strength. And yet that's the sort of fixture where if they had a game 3 days before or 3 days afterwards, I think you'd be worried about.
Yeah, and I'd also add to that as well. I don't really think it's travel time is too much of a big deal, but West Ham away. So okay, Sporting is away, but after that, West Ham away is in London. Man United's at home. Fulham away, it's in London. Monaco, it's in London. Everton, it's in London. Crystal Palace at home, it's in London. Crystal Palace away, it's in London. Like they don't have to travel anywhere
You're right.
after the Sporting Lisbon. They're
You're right.
basically in
Up until
London.
Brighton, 4th of January.
Yeah, so they've got a prolonged period where they're not traveling basically. So I think obviously does have an impact if you can just go home to your own bed and that kind of thing. I'm sure they go
Yeah,
to
so
team hotels sometimes and
Arsenal's
stuff.
Arsenal. I'd not noticed that before. It's a great spot. Arsenal's away games from the 30th of November. West Ham. You got West Ham away, Fulham away, Crystal Palace away, Brentford away. They're all London.
Mm. They've got a prolonged period of no travel, which I think will help. Um, yeah, it will help. And
Yeah,
also remember they're chasing as well, so they need points on the board.
we never really factor that, do we? Oh, they had to get on a flight. Or, I mean, Arsenal obviously are not going to
Mm.
fly to any of these games. They don't need to get on an aeroplane
It's the
from.
European midweek stuff that's more frustrating. I think with the UK stuff, they get back within a few hours, and it is what it is. But the European stuff for sure, yeah,
Chelsea looks worse than it is. Chelsea looks worse than it is because we know that in the Conference League they'll essentially
yeah,
play a
B team.
second team. So where you see these red markers for Chelsea, quite often, arguably, they shouldn't be there. So I guess we want to ask Villa at home 13 is in game week 13 is a Sunday. Play Southampton away on the Wednesday in 14, then Tottenham away on the Sunday, game week 15. Because it's Southampton away in the midweek, and we know that they have so far this season always played a second team in midweek, I'm sure they won't play a second team at Southampton. But that does feel like one where I feel like Wesley Fofana, for example, might not play at Southampton in game week 14, for those who are deliberating like a Colwell versus Fofana. I think 14, Haaland's probably the best shout for captaincy, despite how strong Forest are defensively. It's still a game at the Etihad. Because Salah goes to Newcastle, I think you'd want to favour Palmer that week.
Yeah, Southampton's a better fixture for sure.
Do you have any concerns about that?
No, if he's fit, I think he would play.
Is that influenced by the fact it's then 4 days to Tottenham?
No, I think it's just influenced by the fact that they need points. I think they'll have had Villa at home afterwards. I think he'll play.
I think that's the only one that's a bit of a concern for your Palmers, your Jacksons, is potentially game week 14. Obviously, look, Palmer's on 3 yellow cards and Jackson's on 4. But when you remove the European fixtures from the space in, I think it looks really good for Chelsea throughout, even over the Christmas period. Brentford to Everton is a week. Everton to
Yep,
Fulham is 4 days. Fulham even
yep.
to play Ipswich on the Monday night. It's 4 days. So I think actually for the Chelsea assets, bar maybe the questionable of Southampton away in game week 14, they look pretty safe to me.
Yeah.
Tottenham, I think, largely will pretty much almost exclusively go with their strongest players as well. In a strong position in Europa League, we also don't have the depth of squad to be going, oh, let's just rest Son and play Werner instead. Like, we're not there at the moment. Even things in the team where you think are questionable at the moment, like, say, Bissouma versus Bentancur, right? Well, Bentancur's suspended till Boxing Day now. So, Bissouma plays the Premier League games and Bentancur plays the Europa League games. There's obviously no fantasy relevance to that. But I think based on what we've seen so far this season, I don't think there's too much reason to have concerns about Tottenham players playing throughout December in the Premier League. One interesting note on Tottenham as well is it's Thursday, Sunday all the way. All the way after Manchester City this Saturday, it's Thursday, Sunday every single week all the way through. Now, the Thursday, Sunday thing is like a mental kind of thing in your brain, which just for some reason is worse than Wednesday, Saturday. But it does at least give you a routine, even in the sense that Tottenham play Manchester United in the Carabao Cup quarterfinal is also a Thursday. So all the way through Tottenham a Thursday, Sunday until they play Newcastle on Saturday, the 4th of January. And that doesn't have a midweek fixture punctuated in the middle of that. So Tottenham will have a routine. And I think the strongest team will always go out on a Sunday, and then you'll get mix and matches like one midweek Porro will play, the next midweek Udogi will play, and Archie Gray will probably play both midweek fixtures, one on the right, one on the left. Like, I think it's going to be like that. So I think if you are considering Tottenham players over this period, there's no real reason for concern. Even things that would have been perhaps a concern like Richarlison looks like he's not going to be available for this period, i.e. to eat into, say, Solanke's minutes. So I think Tottenham feels pretty safe. What about Newcastle, Suj, with Isak has been known to have injuries historically. A lot of people want to buy him this week. That includes me. Hot point only really feels like after the Liverpool game on the Wednesday night in game week 14 and then go to Brentford on the Saturday. But otherwise, the spacing's pretty good. They are in the Carabao Cup quarterfinals themselves and will obviously treat it very seriously. So maybe a little bit of concern about Ipswich away in 17. And there is a case to say Isak's a strong captaincy, I think, in 17 at Ipswich.
Again, the thing with Isak is, I would say the Brentford Carabao Cup game. If you heard that Callum Wilson was fit, you'd think that Callum Wilson would.
I don't know. They're so desperate for a
that.
trophy, Suj, aren't they?
Yeah, true. But I mean, he can always come off the bench and have an impact. It's whether or not you think Brentford will rotate because they'll want a trophy as well. I think he'll play through. I think the fact that the Leicester game before the Brentford game, they're both at home, so lack of travel. I think he'll play as well. And you're right. The only pinch point is in the midweek again, which is it's a pinch point for everybody almost really. Liverpool at home, Isak will play, so I think he'll be available for most of this.
And you do play the Saturday before that midweek fixture against Liverpool, which is a little bit helpful as well. This Villa one, I can't escape in my mind, such in terms of Ollie Watkins particularly. And the reason why I think I and many others, I think, even though we don't own him now, are looking at Watkins in game week 15 at home with Southampton and thinking I'd probably want to captain him. The reason for that being is the rest doesn't appeal massively. Salah goes to Everton, Haaland goes to Palace, Saka goes to Fulham, Palmer goes to Tottenham. Your best other alternatives don't feel that great. Isak at Brentford, but then 3 days after Liverpool, just not great either. The Watkins period for Villa.
Someone might go Bruno Fernandes maybe if you own.
Home to Nottingham Forest, yeah, another one. Yeah, maybe we'll all be on Marcus Rashford by game week 15. I have no idea, Suj.
We might see something from Amarim that might make us think that that's a move to go to, but yeah.
Yeah, could be. I think wildcarders now will be tempted by Watkins, but it feels like most are moving towards Isak. I think Jackson would have been an alternative, but people are scared about the 4 yellow cards, right? Watkins has, for context here, they've got Palace at home this week, and then Juventus at home is obviously a big game Wednesday night in the Champions League. Fine. They go to Chelsea on the Sunday. Then they play Brentford at home Wednesday, Southampton at home Saturday. Then they go to Red Bull Leipzig away on the Tuesday. I can't help but stare at those Brentford and Southampton games and think John Duran is starting one of them 2 games.
Yeah, but he could easily just start against Leipzig.
He could.
They're likely to qualify, aren't they?
The point being is, if Watkins played 90 minutes against Brentford on that Wednesday night and you owned him, would you captain him against Southampton on that Saturday? That's the point, isn't it?
No.
So you're trying to preempt this sort of thing in your mind. So for me, I'm looking at the moment and thinking, if Watkins doesn't start against Brentford on the Wednesday, I possibly want to buy him and captain him specifically for Southampton, and then arguably even move him straight on.
But would you feel comfortable captaining Isak with Brentford away that day?
Yeah, I feel comfortable captaining Salah away to Everton even, but that does feel like a possibility for Watkins that it could go off and be a major differential for captaincy, right? But I think if he started against Brentford and say they chase the game and he plays 85, 90 minutes, I'm massively put off.
Okay. Yeah,
the Juventus game could also have a bearing, right? If they get a bad result against Juventus in the Champions League, suddenly the pressure really goes on that Leipzig game because obviously they lost the last one to Bruges.
Yep.
So of all the ones that I keep saying is that Watkins in game week 14 and 15 concerned, because I think you look at it on paper and you go, Brentford at home, Southampton at home, I want it. 2 of the weakest defences in the league at the moment. I definitely want some of that. The problem is also Chelsea away before, you don't particularly want that. And then after those 2 games for Watkins, it's Forest away, City at home, Newcastle away. Doesn't feel great. So you are happy, I think, just to dive on and dive off. And I know most people are going to avoid it. That's why I potentially want to get to it. So
As a block of six, Isak's fixtures are much better. It's just who plays what. I think if you look at it as a block of six, the fact that Isak comes out with Leicester at home, Ipswich away after the midweek games, and obviously 2 weeks after that, I think Isak's got a better set of fixtures,
say you're in, I wouldn't be binning Isak when he's playing Brentford that weekend. That's
No,
not
it's
the one
more
I'd be
if
looking
people
at.
are thinking of making the move. Like I own Watkins right now, and he's a make weight for Isak should I want to, because I'm not selling Solanke. I'm going to keep Solanke for your Fulham game.
I'd be selling Solanke out of two, boss. Tottenham's things like Fulham and Bournemouth, these are good teams, Such. There's nothing that screams Solanke's going to go off. I think you'll be consistent. I keep saying that. But you look at Tottenham's next four now of City, Fulham, Bournemouth, Chelsea, it doesn't scream to you like they're going to go off, does it?
No, you're right.
I'd definitely move in Solanke. Watkins got Palace at home this week and a weakened Palace as well, by the looks of it.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'd be a bit envious of you in Watkins. I guess more the debate is things like, say I've got Jackson, and I probably wouldn't have transfers in hand. Jackson's obviously got great fixtures. Let's say Jackson did play at Southampton and picked up that fifth yellow card there. I want to buy Watkins, don't I? Yeah. Even if it is just for one game. Southampton, I'm captain, and then reverse it.
Yep. It might be worth it.
I'm considering that sort of thing in my mind. Jackson goes to Tottenham that same weekend. So you could make the case then anyway, I think, despite what I say about my team. There would maybe be justification. Would you consider that? Missing Jackson away to Tottenham to captain Watkins against Southampton and then go straight back? I guess it depends how well you're set, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd see who else was on my bench and whether or not the transfer was worth more to me, because obviously neither of us have a wild card, right? So that one I'm very 50-50. Very 50-50.
Yeah, I'm looking at maybe, if I don't move Solanke this week, maybe going Solanke to Watkins in 14, knowing that he probably doesn't start those two games. But if I can get sort of 110, 120 out of those two home games, is that enough?
It's worth it.
Is it versus a probable sort of 180 of Solanke in just two more difficult fixtures? Minutes. How king are minutes here? This is it. How king is minutes over this period?
Depends on the player and the fixtures.
Because I think every player you're buying at the moment, you're considering their minutes, aren't you, over this sort of period? So things like we'd said, like Wesley Fofana versus Colwell. I get it. Colwell is close to a suspension. But I do think Fofana probably doesn't play at Southampton in 14. Now, if you remove the easiest fixture that Chelsea have over the next 3 or 4, then how attractive is it? You want to go Colwell instead, don't you?
Yeah.
If that's the case. And if Watkins doesn't start one of those two Brentford Southampton games, how attractive are his fixtures throughout December? It's just not the same. You'd be massively downgrading him from a ticker if you didn't think he starts against Southampton in game week 15. So we're not going to know the answer. It would just be, I think it would just be one of those two games he won't start.
What's the early kickoff on the 7th, Saturday the 7th?
It's Liverpool.
So unlikely to be too many leaks around Villa either.
I mean, Unai Emery's always last to do his bloody press conference on a Friday anyway. So would there be Villa information about? Maybe. And obviously for the Wednesday night games, obviously the deadline's the day before on the Tuesday. So very unlikely to get anything for...
No help, yeah.
No, for the midweek fixtures. So yeah, it's not to put people off Ollie Watkins. I just think that's the biggest one of all that really needs an awareness. United, we never worry about Bruno Fernandes, do we?
Never.
So do we just assume different manager, it would be the same thing?
Yeah, you're still a Garnacho owner, right?
Yeah, but Garnacho, I don't even know if he starts this week. There's no point me looking at future weeks of Garnacho, how it feels.
It's true. I mean, look, you got your points off your bench last week, but not off your bench. He got points for you off the bench, I should say. United is such an unknown with Amorim coming in right now that the only thing that's worth saying is, Bruno Fernandes will play all of it.
Does he? Definitely. There is a hot period coming up. So they play Bodo Glimt on Thursday. It is at home next week in Europe. And that's our feature on Clayton and James. Tomorrow is the Norwegian club. Everton at home on the Sunday afterwards. Arsenal away the Wednesday. Forest at home the Saturday. So that's the same sort of spacing as that Villa period from Chelsea to Leipzig from Bodo Glimt to Forest. Now, Bodo Glimt you could definitely use as a rotation. But the point is, Everton and Forest at home, could they be used as rotation? Because he definitely picks
No,
his strongest team at
no,
Arsenal, doesn't he?
no. Those are going to be two tough games. Those are going to be two tough games, and I don't think Amarim's going to come in and start rotating. He needs to figure out who his best team is pretty quickly. And
Yeah,
I've
but
no doubt,
isn't that figuring that out is by changing certain personnel like Hoyland, Rashford,
maybe,
Garnacho is the point here.
but not Bruno.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I think
if I
that's
was
the only one people
buying,
want to buy at the moment.
yeah, if I was buying Man United, I'd only be buying Bruno. Plus Onana potentially as a goalkeeper, but that's obviously irrelevant. He'll play all of these games as well. I think it's Bruno or bust with United at the moment, and I think he'll play all of them. The others, yeah, finger in the air.
There's a rumored setup team yesterday that he supposedly trained with, which included Rashford as the nine. But obviously, a lot of players are away on international duty. I don't know how much we can read into that.
Yeah, nothing.
Probably not, right? But if you intended to use him as your left-sided 10, wouldn't you set up with him in that position now? Is that good news for Garnacho, maybe?
Uh, but the rumours are Garnacho could be more of a wing back style role. So, yeah, I'm not making any assumptions or speculating about anything to do with them.
Also had Luke Shaw as a left-sided centre-back.
As a back three, yeah.
You presume that Martinez would be the left-sided centre-back. He may have picked up a problem with Argentina, by the way. Tyrell Malacia was left wing-back in this setup. So is it Dallo versus Matswari on the right?
Oof. Questions, James.
Yeah, I feel like they are completely avoidable at the moment, bar Bruno Fernandes. I think you're in wildcard, you're very tempted to put him in. I think if I was going to United one at the moment, other than that, I'd probably go Onana. It's the only one I'd feel comfortable with at this minute.
Mm-hmm.
Martinez on 4 yellow cards as well, and a doubt at this moment. But yeah, I agree with you. Despite the fact there are some easy fixtures and they're quite clustered together, I think, yeah, Bruno Fernandes plays the lot. The only other real question mark on their spacing, I guess, after the Carabao Cup quarterfinal, they had Bournemouth at home on the Sunday. But again, their spacing afterwards is 4 days, 4 days. I think they'll largely be all right.
Yep.
He does feel like for that expected top 8, they haven't been none of them have been shafted too badly, I think.
Yeah, and they've got depth in squads as well that will allow them to manoeuvre the period quite well. There's very little that we've said, oh, this is really a big problem. It's just bits and pieces here and there. Yeah, you're right.
I look at things like Timber, who I know people are interested in. And I think at the moment, I'd be more concerned what's the plan for Arsenal rather than the spacing of the games. I think he's actually quite decent for them throughout December. It's more always Tomiyasu fit. What does that mean? Because There seems to be an assumption Ben White's probably out till New Year, or Timber's going to play right back.
Well, maybe not.
Calafiori play left back, but I don't know what the Tomiyasu impact is on that. And Zinchenko still exists, doesn't he? Yep. It's not like Everton at home, a game they'll massively dominate on the ball. In game week 16, you couldn't just play Zinchenko at left back after they've played Monaco and Fulham 3 days before that. I feel like that's avoidable because I don't have the information.
Yeah,
but I think the spacing largely for the expected top 8 is quite good. For the rest, you can kind of overview it by saying, yeah, there's certainly concerns between weeks 13 and 15, where any club's pretty liable to rotate because it's just midweek weekend. There's only one club out of the expected top 8 that has 3 days over that period, and that's Everton.
Unexpected top 8.
Did I say expected? Yeah, Everton are definitely not an expected top 8. The expected bottom 12, let's say. So they play United away on the Sunday in 13, Wolves at home midweek 14, Liverpool at home 15. But I just think Sean Dyche will go, yeah, there's a week break between 12 and 13 and between 15 16. I'll be playing my strongest team in all 3 of those games.
And the irony is, like, if you look at United, Wolves, Liverpool, Arsenal, the Wolves game is the only one that looks interesting. Like Manchester United, Liverpool and Arsenal as a 3 out of the 4. They have 3 hits. You're going to give it a go anyway, but there's no real expectation from your Everton assets from Man United away, Liverpool and Arsenal.
Interestingly, Wolves, who are, I think there's obviously interest in the likes of Ait Nori and Cunha and Larson at the moment, particularly. Their spacing is arguably best of the lot until you get right to the end of the year. So Boxing Day they play Manchester United at home, and then Tottenham away 3 days later on the Sunday. But up until that period, they've always got at least a 3 day rest between games. They're the only club that's got that all the way through. So Wolves, you would expect to just see a consistent team all the way through this. Not that you would ever expect a Cunha or an Ait Nori to be rotated, but I'm saying on the schedule, there's no reason to fear that at all if you're looking at these players. What about Mr. João Pedro, Suj? What's the biggest threat to him here? Is it playing Fulham away on a Thursday and then Leicester away on a Sunday in terms of rotation, or is it just his teammates and the amount of quality they've got?
It's just rotation because of the volume of players, and obviously he is injury prone. Like, he's missed bits. They're going to want to look after him. They won't want to use him if they don't need to. But again, it depends where they are in the league and what they're chasing.
One interesting thing between that Thursday Sunday period that they have, they've got a massive gap between 13 and 14 because they've got Southampton at home on the Friday night in 13. They've actually got 6 days between Southampton and Fulham. So it's Fulham away, Leicester away, and then you've got another big gap of a week from Leicester in 15. So Crystal Palace at home is now the Sunday in game week 16. So their spacing's pretty good. Couple of other notes on a few others. Bournemouth go to Ipswich Sunday the 8th, game week 15. That's one that obviously looks good on fixtures. But they've got Tottenham at home on the Thursday beforehand would make me a little bit nervous about that Ipswich away game. Like, could Enes Unal play up front rather than Evan Nilsson, for example? Yeah. That one feels like a maybe to me, where I'd be a little bit concerned about that. And the quality of the opponent obviously does have a little bit of a bearing on this. There might be a bit of interest in your team, Suj, in a period between 14 and 19.
Yeah, I was going to say only from 14 onwards. And the spacing then is good.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant for West Ham. West Ham have always got at least 5 days between games of 14 up to 18. The 5 really good fixtures before they play Liverpool on Sunday the 29th in game week 19. So if you do want to go bow in all that period, and obviously that's Kudos's returns from suspension game, isn't it? Yep. Game week 14 away to Leicester. He might be an escape for me from Garnacho,
Okay. Yeah, I don't mind that. It'll be fresh, that.
Just 5 games and let it sit there and move it on. Because I might not be able to make the moves that I want to if I want to get rid of Garnacho. Brentford, I think, largely will be fine. One note I'd have on them as well is they obviously have a Carabao Cup quarterfinal at Newcastle. That is obviously a big travel. Wednesday, the 18th of December. And they have gone quite strong in the competition so far. They've got Chelsea away the Sunday night. It's a 7 o'clock Sunday night kickoff beforehand. And then Nottingham Forest at home on the Saturday. I don't think it's a Bumo problem, but I think a problem here might be coming for Visser at some point. And we've got no understanding of what Tom Med said to us on COTC a couple of weeks ago, what the impact of Thiago is going to be. Because he was bought to be the Tony replacement. He played 45 minutes of a behind closed door friendly last week. So he's getting close. I don't think Visser is a concern for the next 2. If you are looking to hold that longer term through their tougher fixtures, I think it may become a concern. So I think Visser, I'd definitely be looking to move on from game week 14 Leicester onwards if you own. Some might even go early there and go Visser to João Pedro at that point, although that feels particularly dangerous. Bumo, I wouldn't have concerns about. But no, he'll play as covered plenty of times.
Other than the fixtures are just difficult. Yeah.
There's options to move it on. Those lower down the table, I don't think can rotate much. Look at things like if you had a pinch point for, say, Fulham, who normally pick a kind of very similar 11 anyway, the only spacing they've got in the 13 to 15 period of 3 days, Brighton at home, Arsenal at home, and it's Tottenham away before that. I just look at them 3 fixtures and think Fulham's strongest players will play all 3 of them games. They're out the Carabao Cup as well. So it's interesting. Normally we land over this period and I think it looks really, really dodgy. It doesn't really, does it?
Do you think that's partially because of... No, I think you're not wrong. Is it partially because of the way that the cup fixtures have been spaced out or the European fixtures have been spaced out? Is there a change in the way that the fixtures have been put together? that allows that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you look at, say, the Carabao Cup quarter final period between 16 and 17, Brentford and Palace are the only two of the 8 teams left in who have got a game 3 days before and 3 days afterwards.
Right.
So even if, say, Tottenham want to go very strong against Manchester United or United want to do it strong against Tottenham, got like a 3 day rest in between the game from the previous weekend. So they'll be able to do it comfortably. Palace have gone strong in the Carabao Cup this season as well. But I don't suppose they're going to rotate massively for Brighton away the weekend before, which is obviously their big rivalry game.
Rivalry.
And then
Yeah.
Arsenal at home they play them straight after the cup game. They play them again in the league. So Arsenal may rotate a little bit more for that cup game, but they've been rotating in it anyway. And they're more likely to rotate in that than Palace away in the league on the Saturday afterwards. So from the fantasy perspective, I don't think it's too many concerns. The hottest periods, I think, is sort of 14, 15. Things like Palmer at Southampton in 14, Watkins 14, 15 are concerning periods. But there could be gold there if you're brave enough with Watkins. That's the point.
Yep.
How much, before we finish, how much do you factor captaincy in all this, just generally speaking?
I do, though, now that obviously, I mean, Salah's going to dominate my captaincy. Salah and Palmer are going to dominate my captaincy throughout. This weekend is Salah. The weekend afterwards, Man City at home might be Salah again. If I hold on to Solanke, I might go with Solanke with the Fulham home fixture.
You're good, Fulham.
Yeah, but I know you had a bit of a moment at home in the last game, but you've still been scoring a lot of
No,
goals.
I'm not. I'm not. So I'm saying to you, I'll give you a different example. Go forward to game week 16. Salah's got Fulham at home. I'd arguably prefer Palmer home to Brentford.
Yeah, maybe.
That's
If I
looking at
buy
the opposition.
Isak at Palace away is an option as well for that fixture, for captaincy. But Salah's always your safe option, right?
Of course he is.
The home fixture.
And it's going to be difficult to go against him any week now if you own.
That midweek set of fixtures, 14, is likely to be Palmer, Southampton away. And then the Saturday afterwards, I know you have said that you're not so keen on that Everton away for Salah, but I think I'll probably go Salah then as well. So, yeah, I think between Salah and Palmer, I've got most things covered.
I think I'll end up captaining Salah in 15 at Everton as well. I'm not thrilled by that.
Everton have been great. I don't think it's too bad.
He's so up for it. They won the game 2-0 in April. Last ever Merseyside derby at Goodison.
Yeah, could be a massacre as well.
Could be. Yeah, Liverpool are capable, but will Liverpool be fatigued after the City and Newcastle games before it as well?
Yeah, potentially.
I want to captain Watkins in that week, but I want him benched against Brentford to do it, I think.
Yeah, well, cross your fingers, James. That's what we might see from Emery.
Yeah, I think for the big players, probably the message here is have an awareness and you need to react on what happens afterwards. I.e., if Salah plays 90 minutes against City and Newcastle and they're really tough games, you've got to give that some thought rather than being, if that's your only captaincy option in game week 15, the advice at the moment is leave yourself options open, yep. I would say. Because the alternatives that week aren't great, I don't think, say with Palmer at Tottenham, Saka at Fulham. If you're off Haaland, the alternatives that week aren't great. Haaland away to Palace is the bet. This is the irony about it. So many people selling him. I think Haaland is probably the best captaincy free of the next 4.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so for the Tottenham at home game. I do think Salah against Southampton, but I do agree with you for the Forest Palace games. He does look pretty tasty for those.
Romero got sent home early from Argentina. Got no Mickey van der Ven update for you yet. If it's Davis and Dragishin, Haaland is the best captaincy this weekend.
Yeah, then yeah, I do agree with you.
And yeah, a lot of people are going to sell him this weekend. Yeah.
Hold your breath if you do. In response to people looking at a screen on YouTube, if you are trying to decode the gaps, if you want access to James's fixture planning spreadsheet, then why not come and be part of our Patreon? It's patreon.com/planetfpl. It gets shared amongst everybody and gets updated on a very regular basis as soon as we know when the kind of cup fixtures are and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, you need to have access to Slack to be able to access my planner. So it's available from basic plus tier.
Lovely jubbly. Cool. If you notice anything else that you think would be interesting in terms of spacing or have any thoughts around rotation, why not jump in the comments on YouTube and let us know what you think. Other than that, though, make sure you're subscribed wherever you're listening to the podcast and stay tuned as the content keeps coming thick and fast for the rest of the week. One more COTC, Clayton and James show, our James live stream, and a bunch of other stuff ready for you for the rest of the week. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man. Shout.